and welcome to the Granite Stater Stereo. Today we'll be discussing the senator race between Maggie Hassan and Don Bolduc. I'm your host, Natalie, the Democrat candidate specialist. Would everyone go around and introduce themselves?
I'm Cole. I'm the Republican specialist.
I'm Ryan. I'm the Democrat Super PAC specialist.
I'm Logan. I'm the Republican Super PAC specialist.
And today, as we discuss the Senate race, here's some background information. New Hampshire has strongly been going Democrat for the past few elections, and Maggie Hassan is the current sitting senator. However, the state is very purple and close in the race, as their current governor is Republican. And as the largest issues for New Hampshire citizens right now is inflation and rising costs, as well as abortion access, these will be at the forefront of the Senate race and important for the candidates to talk about. So, first, Cole, would you like to discuss what we know about Bolduc?
Sure. So Bolduc basically is a outstanding veteran. Basically, he used to be a brigadier general. He basically he did 10 tours in Afghanistan, which he received 2 Purple Hearts. When he was 18, he was hired as a police officer. He was a tireless advocate for to the combat stigma around the treatment of post-traumatic stress. So he's a big supporter of veterans, and he always wants to be out in the field, and he knows what it's like to be out in the field. He knows that he just really wants a strong economy to reverse the growth of federal spending and reduce inflation. He's very big on domestic energy production. He knows we have to regain the energy independence and secure the Biden administration squandering. And then finally, he really just wants a strong world leadership because he believes that America is the #1 country in the world and the #1 military in the world. So we must keep that intact, especially when we look at countries like North Korea and Iran, as well as a strong defense of our liberties.
Okay, thank you. And as for Hassan, she has been the current sitting senator, and before getting into politics, she was a business attorney, and she decided to go into politics for her son who has disabilities, and she wanted to ensure that people in similar situations were treated equally. So she was elected senator in 2004, and in 2013 she was actually governor, but now she has gone back to being senator. And for her, she has been mostly focusing on bipartisan efforts, especially during COVID and also national security. And her main goals for this election, and if she were to become senator again, would be to address inflation and rising costs, as well as abortion access and the opioid crisis. And then some of what she has come out and said about how she's going to vote in her policies is that she does not want to expand the Supreme Court, but she does support term limits, and she wants to suspend the federal gas tax to help New Hampshire citizens be able to afford their basic needs more. And she wants to lower costs for childcare, energy, gas, and general products in America. And she's also hoping to keep abortion access in New Hampshire, which could be important as there's currently a required parental notification for abortion in New Hampshire. Ryan, do you want to discuss the super PACs?
Yes, Hassan. She's raised a total of $38,340,375, and she spent about $36 million of that. And the Senate Majority PAC recently, like in the final week, spent $600,000 for final week ad reservations in the New Hampshire race. And her top contributors seem to be Emily's List and Democracy Engine. That seems to be where the majority of her money is coming from.
Logan, what have you found on the Democrat super PACs or Republican super PACs?
So as of Bolduc, he's only raised $2,243,796, and he spent $1,926,435. So as you can see, Hassan has spent way more and has raised way more, but Bolduc is still like he's not in the lead, but they're like neck and neck. So it kind of just shows you it's not always the money that's like influencing these elections. And his main super PAC comes from the Senate Leadership Fund, which is $16 million. Actually, a fun fact about that, they actually pulled out from giving him money, or not giving him money, but they actually pulled out because he made comments on Mitch McConnell, who is the leader of the GOP Senate, he's the leader of that, and he was funding that super PAC.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting how close they are, especially because they're both getting a decent amount of support from their parties overall. But I think especially the fact that currently there's a Democrat sitting president and the prices are very high, I think that might be having an effect on the race and seeing less support for Hassan, and part of why the race is so close when historically New Hampshire has tended to go Democrat for their senators.
Yeah, and actually the last debate, or the only debate they had, Hassan was winning by a lot. The last debate, Bolduc assumedly not beat, but he was able to talk better, and it kind of like got people on his side, and people started funding him more.
Well, I think because I'm looking at the timeline for polls, and it seems that after that debate, her approval rate, I think it's approval ratings, they went down by like 2%. And I saw this article that was talking about how in the debate she kind of distanced herself from Biden's campaign. So that was kind of like a question I had for you, Natalie. Like, do you think Hassan distancing herself from Biden's campaign is going to have that like negative effect on her for her Democratic supporters, or have more of a positive effect on her with like the more independent? And do you think that's what the impact is, or do you think it's something else?
Honestly, I don't know, because I did see articles saying that Jill Biden was supposed to be coming to help support Hassan in campaigning for the past week. So I think maybe she's trying to an extent, distance herself from the Democrat Party itself, because she has been talking about her bipartisan efforts in the past, because she worked on a lot of bipartisan bills like while she's been serving as senator. But I do think to some extent she's trying to keep a connection because she does get so much financial support from her party. Mm-hmm. She doesn't want to alienate those voters. So I think she's going to try and like kind of balance and like walk the line in between being more moderate, but also keeping her Democrat base.
Yeah. And do you think that's going to have more of a positive effect on her polls, or like a negative effect? Like, do you think her moving a bit more towards the middle is going to attract more independent people, or do you think it's going to lose more Democratic support?
Kind of put input in that. I think that would it would cause her to lose some supporters if she goes towards the middle, because again, it's the state has been mostly Democratic in the past. So moving towards the middle is a risky move if she does happen to move towards the middle. And as we see, Bolduc is like kind of gaining on her. So it definitely is a risky move if she does that.
I mean, I do think that, like, I think there's also the fact that some people vote not on who they want in the Senate, but like more who they don't want. So I also like, there's also the other part of this that's like, if he doesn't, or if voters aren't like agreeing with what Hassan is doing, but are but still don't want Bolduc to take place to like get a spot, to get a spot in the Senate. Do you think like they'd be like pissed off enough with her moving towards the middle more to not vote for her? And because like this is like a swing state for the Senate.
It really helps Bolduc's case because he's very much he's a hard GOP. He has a lot of rules about immigrants and, basically the regular Republican stuff. So it's going to really hurt Hassan because she's going so middle that all the Democrats definitely don't want Bolduc, but the people that are going to go in the middle are always going to choose Bolduc because he really knows what he's standing for. They want someone that knows what they want to do. They know that knows everything, that all of his standards, and is a more clear-cut candidate than Hassan will ever be.
I would agree. Like, I do agree that there's like that portion of, I do agree like that there is that like confidence that is like, that does attract voters. But I would also have to say, like, I feel like having a more moderate position would attract moderate voters. Like, I feel like that there's also something to be said there.
Yeah, especially because New Hampshire is a swing state. So even though if Hassan has been a little wishy-washy at times with her politics, I think that she's not quite as extreme as you would say Bolduc is with her party. That might help some people who are on the fence tend to lean towards her for their vote.
Actually, I have something to say. So when they were debating, Bolduc, he said that he stood with the idea that Joe Biden lost the election, as well as his stance on abortion. He said, previously to the debate, he said that his stance on abortion, he would not sign any federal bill that made abortion legal. He said he didn't want to do that, but then he went back on his word, and that kind of made him lose support. Or no, he gained support from Republicans, which kind of boosted his ratings. So definitely, like, I think that like people on the moderate side will go to like Hassan, but also his extremist values also are pulling in people as well.
Yeah, what I found on Bolduc for abortion was that he said he thought it was a states' rights issue, which, however, I do think because he is a member of the GOP, like if he were to become senator, he probably would go towards placing more restrictions on it.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, let me see if I can find the quote. Hassan, she was talking about abortion and Bolduc in the debate they had, and she said, the problem with politicians like Don Bolduc drawing arbitrary lines in these decisions is that they can, in fact, harm women and cost them their lives in some cases. So, and because just abortion is such like a hot topic issue right now, I think that could play a factor in deciding who wins the election.
Yeah, definitely.
The polls are so different from different sources. So like I was wondering what you guys thought, like how does that occur? And because like in one of them, like with the sponsor as the NH Journal, it's saying that Hassan has a 45% chance of winning and Bolduc has a 45% chance of winning. But
so
then
just, like skewed data.
Yeah, but then like on like the Daily Wire, it says Hassan has a 46%, Bolduc has a 47% chance.
Mm-hmm.
But then like University of Massachusetts Lowell, it says Hassan has a 51% chance and Bolduc has a 41% chance. So I think it's like interesting to see like the margin, like to see the error in that and like investigate that a bit.
Yeah, I think it also depends on who's funding the polls because, for example, University of Massachusetts, the university systems tend to be more Democrat leaning, and so their polls that on is more likely to win. And then some of the journals, which I would hope are trying to be very much in the middle, those are closer. And then if you had like a Republican funded poll like Politico, that would probably show that Bolduc's winning.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Yeah, and it really shows how like in today's age they don't really matter to actually who's going to win. It's more of a stance to see really how you can sway voters, because it's a lot more about, oh, how are these people voting? I'm going to vote exactly like them instead of saying actual truths, because anyone on social media now can make a quote unquote poll, and the actual decisions of those polls will be completely skewed in any types of ways. So it's really just a way to show kind of mob mentality. Like, for example, the polls for the past elections have all pretty much meant nothing, because at the very end, a lot of people have changed their minds. A lot of people have done different things than polls actually decided. It's just, it really depends on where you look and who actually does the polls now.
Yeah, I really do like that point that you brought up, like, because I think the mob mentality is like very interesting. And because like unless you're like super into politics and you research everything, like if you're more on the moderate side, it's easier to be swayed by like the number of masses. Like unless you've taken a clear stance on like everything, it's easy to be swayed, I would argue.
All right, this is changing the direction of the conversation a little, but I did want to ask Cole. Bolduc has been linking Hassan with the Biden and Democrat majorities for inflation. And I kind of want to ask, do you think that's going to be a good strategy to get him votes? Because there is the whole idea of people voting with their pocketbooks.
Absolutely, because Bolduc has definitely planted himself into putting economy first a lot in a lot of different places. He believes that with everyone that voted Biden, a lot of times they included trillions of dollars in new spending in just the past year. And the only thing it's actually ever led to was inflation and stagnant economy. So he thinks that, I think that Bolduc really attacking Hassan in her economic ways will really help him, because if she aligns herself with Biden, which everyone is kind of hating right now with the ways that he's taking the economy, it will really help him in the polls.
Okay, does anyone else have any thoughts on that, and like kind of the whole idea of how much the economy is going to play a factor in the voting?
Just what Cole said exactly. Like people are looking for strong leadership and they want like a strong economy. So Bullock addressing that is definitely going to pull in people.
Well, also, Cole, on the flip side of that, you did have Bolduc going back on saying how initially the 2020 election had been stolen, and then he kind of changed his words on that.
Exactly
So that could have alienated a lot of his Republican voters too.
Yeah, absolutely. He, many different ways, he's flip-flopped on what he thinks the GOP actually can stand for, because he's such a far-right politician that he believes that going with the crowd will really help him in the polls, which it has definitely, because I feel like people are kind of sick with the Democratic way of life right now, just because a lot of people's lives are not better than they were with Trump in as president. So I believe that he really just wants to amplify exactly what he thinks the GOP have in mind.
And I do think he has been kind of almost mirroring Trump in a way, because I found this quote from one of the debates, and this was referring to Hassan. He said, "She's failed. 6 years of failure. Fail, 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 fail." So I think that whole idea, because that's kind of mirroring, I think, the way Trump would talk a lot in his debates and speeches. So I think that even that is kind of appealing to the Republicans in New Hampshire and helping him get some support.
That's actually a very interesting idea that you bring up. Like, do you guys think like the way that like politicians compose themselves and like the diction they use and the way they say it, like do you think that like has like a big effect on like who people vote for? Because
Definitely.
I know a ton of people who love that style of giving speeches, and then I know others who like absolutely hate that.
I definitely think it has an influence because like Miss Ulala was saying in class, people will vote for the tallest candidate, so they have to like get like step stools or something like that to make them look taller. So it definitely like presentation definitely will get you votes.
Yeah. And then I was also gonna mention, so Logan, like you said earlier about the correlation between money spent on campaigning and winning. Like right now, Hassan is winning, and she has spent like a lot of money on it.
Mhm.
Like it's interesting to see like how she spent like, or she's raised nearly 60. I think it was like, oh wait, she's raised nearly like 36,000 or 36 million more than Bolduc does, but she's only ahead by a couple of points. Like, what do you guys like? I think it's very interesting that there isn't as much of a correlation between money spent on campaigning and whether or not you'll win.
Yeah.
And then that makes me think of if it is truly an arms race, because that's what we were talking about in class the other day, about how the reason people spend that much money on campaigns is to like just to beat their opponent with money spent. So, but like this is clear, like Bolduc isn't spending all that much. Like Hassan has spent like way more. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I definitely going back to what Cole said, like people want like a strong Republican leadership after like a strong Democrat leadership. So that they want to change basically. So I think just the way that Bolduc is like presenting himself and addressing these issues is helping him in the polls. So it just shows like money is not all of it in politics. It's definitely like your presentation and how you go about yourself. So I think he's just smarter with how he plays his cards, which is why he's gaining on her, and how he's addressing these topics.
So going off of that, who does everyone think is going to win the race if we had to make a prediction?
I think Bolduc has a pretty good chance of winning, but also Hassan does. But if I had to guess, I would say Bolduc, just because he's gaining on her, and again how he presents himself is helping him gain votes.
I feel like he just has a much wider range because Democrats really don't know what to do with Hassan, because she doesn't really fit the Democratic bill as much as Bolduc fits the Republican bill.
I'm gonna disagree there with you guys. I think Hassan's gonna win, just because like I'm looking at the polling, and even though her approval rating has gone down, she's been in the lead the entire time. So I'm just like looking at the trends, and I think that she'll win.
I'm gonna agree with Ryan, because I think Hassan, she has the advantage of being the sitting senator and her party being in power, like in the presidency. Plus, there's probably a lot of people that will likely vote for her because they don't want to vote for a Republican, kind of like what happened with the 2020 election. And also, I think the fact that she is trying to have that bipartisan kind of campaigning style and reach across to grab the moderates will help her. So I do think it's going to be her. However, if Bolduc did somehow pull it off in the end, I wouldn't be surprised. Thank you for tuning in to the Granite Stater Stereo, and we hope to see you next time.